Welcome to the Grief and Belief podcast, where we share stories of hope. Thank you for joining us. We hope this powerful story will help you feel God's love for you today.
Welcome to another episode of the Grief and Belief podcast. I'm David Mickelson.
And I'm Kori Andrews.
And we're super excited to have our second installment of our new segment with Jordan Robertson. Jordan, thank you so much for being on again.
For sure. Happy to be here.
Yeah, we have just been so looking forward to this, and we think this is going to be a real exciting part of the new podcast. And so we're excited for what Jordan has in store for us today. And Kori, do you know what else I was thinking about? I was thinking if, we're now a year and a month or two into this. I think if people haven't listened to your episode, which is episode 2, I think people should go back and listen to yours because you had so many awesome things to share. And I just think people ought to go back and listen to it. Maybe if they've listened to it a long time ago, they ought to listen to it again. And so that's my little, preview thought for today is go listen to Kori Andrews episode, season 1, episode 2. It's one for the ages.
Oh, that's so kind of you. I don't know if it's worth all the scrolling that you might have to do, but no, that's super kind. I love sharing Cameron's story. And so more people that can hear it, the more it feels like her 38 days meant something, and so appreciate that, David. You're awesome.
Yeah. Well, and you're a great teacher.
And say Cupcake Girl is a good one.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Well, Jordan, you're going to take us through our second episode on your segment. And I think we're going to talk about what is counseling like. How would you like to kind of intro today's episode?
Yeah. So before we begin, I'm going to give a huge caveat and say, while I am a PhD student in training, see people, meet with people, I am not your counselor. And the things that I share are specifically my opinion or gained through my learning and experience. So just to put that out there. But what I think I can share and would love to go through is just kind of give an overview of if you feel like, man, I'm really struggling with the pain of my grief and I don't know how to navigate this on my own and have ever thought, I think I could use professional help, then I want to unpack what professional help would look like. So my thought is I have some questions that may come up that you may have thought, that you may have experienced, and I'm going to say the question, answer it a little bit, and then I'd love David and Kori to just ask more questions to kind of flesh out what is counseling. What is it? What would it be like for me? Is it something I should consider and kind of give me a roadmap?
Okay.
Jordan, would you share maybe a few of those questions with us just in case our audience is like, what are we going to talk about?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm going to go through what is counseling like? How do I know if I need it? What can counseling do for me? Are there limitations? How do I find a therapist? How do I pay for it? And then talk to me about grief counseling. What is that? How does that work? Is it a thing? So
I'm excited for this.
My roadmap.
Awesome.
Yeah. Okay. So first, just what is it like to be in counseling? I'll answer it first as a client. So I started by going to counseling. When I found out my husband had a terminal diagnosis, I had 4 little kids and a baby who was 10 weeks old. It was too much. And I found myself just ruminating and overwhelmed and really almost unable to live in my normal life. And I had a friend, I was meeting with her. We were actually at like a stake event and she had a calling. She had a calling that I was now filling. And we were in the kitchen prepping some stuff. And I was just talking about all my feelings and thoughts and overwhelm. And she said, Jordan, have you ever considered counseling? And I was like, no. She said, I have a really good therapist and I think she could be helpful to you. And I was like, and it just hit me, not her saying that, but also kind of this feeling of the spirit of like, walk that road. And so from this woman who was a dear friend, trusted friend, I got this counselor's name. And for me, it felt really important because I am LDS and was living in Phoenix, Arizona. I was like, I have to talk to someone who has a similar faith belief, because I can't talk to someone who's like, oh, your husband's just in the orb or he's going to cease to exist. It was like, no, I got to talk to someone who believes what I believe, that he will continue existing. It will be in a different, realm, but I will see him again. So that's kind of how it worked. And so I called up the counselor, and it ended up that she was a PhD, so a psychologist, but she worked from home. She had a private practice that she ran out of a home office. And for me, that was the most wonderful setting because of my husband's disease. We were in medical offices all the time. And they were somewhat traumatic for me, going in, the smells, the doctors, the scrubs, all of it was just like, whew. And so it was really fortunate that it happened to be that this woman worked from home. So I just drove up into her driveway and walked into a room that was like a living room area, had a closed door. So a counseling session, they usually are about 50 minutes. They consist of the first session is what's called usually an intake session. So that's where the counselor is getting information from you. Depending on where you go, there's a series of paperwork that they may have you fill out before you even get there. And on the paperwork, it asks just a lot of information, demographic information, but then health related information, kind of any medical history concerns, any mental health concerns in your past, and then just questions about what's going on right now in life. How do you find yourself struggling? What are your symptoms? There'll be a lot of questions about that. So often you kind of fill out the paperwork and then the person you go see has it, but you may not. My person, I didn't fill out any paperwork. I just walked in the door. Kori.
Yeah, I was just curious whether I have maybe a diagnosis for a mental health issue, or I'm like, don't know, or I'm wondering, does that affect any of that? Like, I'm just thinking as filling out that paperwork and sharing mental health, like maybe I feel like I might have a mental health issue, or maybe I have been diagnosed. Does that affect anything in the process of counseling?
Yeah, not particularly. And you don't need to like diagnose yourself, right?
Mhm.
But I think it can. The only way a diagnosis really comes into play is if you have insurance. The diagnosis helps your insurer know kind of what they're paying the bill for.
I see. Okay. That's helpful. Okay, thank you.
For sure. Yeah. So usually a first session consists of called an intake. So it's just where the therapist is getting from you an overall picture of what's going on. And that session is different from maybe subsequent counseling sessions in that the therapist will ask many questions. And those questions kind of are on that biopsychosocial model. So kind of biologically, what's going on, socially, relationally, what's going on, psychologically, mental health, what's going on. And then in my counseling sessions, I always add in a spiritual component because I work with many clients who are religious, for whom their faith is part of how they make sense of their world. And so they just it will be an overall assessment, asking questions, getting information. And then there's usually time in the end for you to kind of share major concerns. And then most therapy ends with some kind of goal setting. So at the end of maybe an intake session, it's like, okay, if things got better, looked better, felt better, what would happen to get there? And so it's usually, talking about some kind of goal or what you hope therapy will provide. So that's kind of a first session. And then depending on your needs, counseling's really flexible. So in my work, in seeing people, I have people who come in and my feeling is, man, this is a really pressing thing. Let's see you every week. I have other people who come in and I'm like, you're really doing okay, but there are some unloading aspects that you need to do. Let's meet once a month. And then I have other people who are like, this is my life and my schedule, and this is what I can do. And so there's a lot of flexibility to kind of work within your time frame, your availability, your financial ability. So generally, once you have the first meeting, then you kind of schedule an appointment or a few appointments depending on your needs. Most people in private practice can see you every week, and that can be a thing. But I think if you go to institutional settings, like say you're at a community mental health or you're a university student, there may be some caveats or limitations for how frequently you can be seen.
If you start a counseling, is it ever like you're locked in for a certain amount of time, or like is it ever like, okay, I started with this and so I got to do these 10 sessions, or do you ever have to pay up front or anything like that happens?
In my experience so far, no. It's pretty, you go the first time and then you develop a plan. And that's part of the goal setting with the therapist. Like, look, I want to get to where I can get out of bed, or where I can do this or that or the other, And so that kind of sets up, okay, let's meet for a month and see how you're doing at the end of a month. But no, you're never locked in. In counseling, you could go once and then you could never go back. Nothing happens to you. That's also an option.
So, what should, in that first visit, what do you think a person should be looking for in the counselor? Because I also know you could have a great counselor who just doesn't, we just don't jive together.
Yeah.
And so it's probably not going to work out that great. But, or you might say, this person's just not a great counselor.
Yeah.
But what should I be trying to evaluate as the person testing out the counselor, so to speak?
For sure. So I think first of all, you need to feel comfortable with this person. You need to feel like I can speak freely. And so that's, a non-judgmental stance. That's having someone who is a good listener, who you feel like is attending to you and not saying, oh, I relate. Let me tell you all about my life, right? You're the one paying. This is not a reciprocal relationship. Counseling is not a relationship where you go and share and then they share with you. Like you go, you're paying money to share with them and walk away, right? So that's important. And then I think when you look up counselors specifically, they'll all have a lot of mumbo jumbo after their names. So they'll have letters that indicate their certification. We'll talk about that later. But they'll also have kind of a description of how they like to do treatment. And those descriptions, again, I have like pre-counselor and post-counselor, but those descriptions at first were just like, blah, 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 gobbledygook. Like, what does any of this mean? So I'd say use ChatGPT, copy their description, type it in and say, what does this mean when this person works with me? Because they are trying to share with you how they work, but I think it's so jargony.
Needs to be translated a little bit.
Yes. But let me give you just a couple of overviews that I think are helpful. A lot of therapists work cognitively. So they'll have something that says CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, cognitive strategies. And a therapist who uses that, what it means is when you come in to work with them, they're going to really attend to how you're thinking. And they're going to talk to you about how you're thinking. They're going to push back on your thinking. They're going to kind of open up your eyes to how you're thinking, because the belief is that the way you're thinking is distorted, and that distorted thinking is causing more pain and suffering. There are also therapists who have letters EFT, emotion focused therapy. They may MF, like people who are marriage family do a lot of I'm blanking on the lady's name. It'll come to me. But Sue Johnson, like relational therapy. And so emotion focused therapy, they are going to be attending to your feelings, what you're feeling, getting you to say feeling words, identifying and opening up kind of awareness of feelings. And so that, because in that view, the emotion is the problem, either not feeling it or not being able to identify it. And so then being able to move into the feelings, work through the feelings, understand the feelings is what will help you to improve. And then there's like other specific forms of therapy that kind of target different things. There's like trauma focused, there's PTSD specific therapies, there's specific practices. There's letters like EMDR, that's eye movement and oh my gosh, I'm blanking. I'll think of it. But our IFS, internal family systems, there's all these like specific jargony words, but all they mean is this therapist has learned a little bit about this way of working with people. And when they work with people, that's what they're trying to do. There's also a lot of language around person-centered therapy, which means this is a therapist who's really just trying to be with you where you are, right? And kind of approach life and see life from your perspective. So I think kind of knowing that helps you know, like, oh, okay, this is what they're going to be attending to, and this is how they're trying to help.
And for somebody who's going through a grief experience, many of those could be helpful. It's not like one is more helpful for grief versus another one. It's
Yeah,
more like how do I view things and what kind of help do I need? Is that the
yeah,
idea?
I think so. Yeah. And no, most therapists, even if they say, I do CBT, everyone does a little bit of everything, right?
Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
Okay, might be a weird question.
Love it. Go. And
What's
again,
the
I don't have
difference?
all the answers. So
Yeah, what's the difference between a counselor and a friend? And here's what I mean by that question. Like, how do I know that I need a counselor, someone who's a professional,
yeah,
rather than I just need someone to talk to? I just need to say say words,
perfect.
if
This
that
was
makes
into
sense.
the next question. How do I know if I need professional counseling? And so I'd say you're looking at three things. Number one is your distress, right? Like if your distress that you're experiencing is of a magnitude that's like, I have never been this distressed before. It is out of the realm of anything I can even understand. That's an important signal. Number two is if your distress is bleeding into other areas of your life, right? Losing someone is like a personal experience. It affects your personal life. But say at work, you can't even work anymore. You can't even focus. Say with friends or with neighbors or with callings, you're unable to attend to kind of just life responsibilities. So it's looking at, is this just, are you distressed? And is this distress moving into kind of the areas of your life where you live and function and have responsibility? And then the third question is it inhibiting my ability to kind of show up and perform? And so I think if the answers are yes, I'm distressed to a level I've never been. Yes, I'm noticing it at home and at work and in my calling and in my relationships with friends and family. And then yes, it's inhibiting my ability to function. I'm not showing up to stuff. I can't talk to people without bursting into tears. I'm not. If all those things are yes, 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 then it's probably safe to say considering professional counseling is for you. Yeah. That didn't answer your question specifically, Kori. So come again. And go, David. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think when we had in the last episode we did with you, we talked about that one grief framework of oscillating back and forth between restorative and loss type activities, if I'm
Mhm.
remembering that correctly.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember talking about like if you get stuck, and if you get stuck in one, you might be able to find ways to get unstuck. But if you feel like you're stuck in a long time one certain place, that
Mhm.
might be another reason to say, I need somebody to help me get unstuck. I haven't been able to figure out how to do it on
Yeah.
my own, and it's been a number of months or however long. So that was another thing I clued into on the last one that was like, oh, maybe for me, this might be a good time to consider getting some help. Maybe it's talking to a friend, but maybe
Yeah.
it's to go talk to a professional help.
Yeah. That's great.
So good. I feel like this is so helpful, and I'm amazed at the humility of someone who realizes that they do need help. I think I have one of my weaknesses is that I don't think I have any. Like, no, I'm doing fine. Like I don't need anybody, right? There's like that problem, and one of my many weaknesses, I should say. Uh, but yeah, like there's just this humble humility, and there's power in that. of saying, you know what,
Mhm.
I need help, and I need someone that can help me get unstuck, like you were saying, David. I think that's so powerful, and and I'm thinking about those out there who are just like, well, I don't, I can do this on my own, or it's like that takes a lot of courage,
Yeah.
to be able to step in, not only to do the things that you already feel like you can't do anything, you know what I mean? Like, I'm not functioning very well, and now here's some steps that I'm gonna have to take. I'm gonna have to call, and I'm gonna have to go in and fill out paperwork, right? Like,
Mhm.
that takes a lot of courage to say, 1, I need help. 2, I'm gonna do it. Like, I'm gonna show up, and I'm gonna sit down, and I'm gonna open my mouth and try it. So,
Yeah. And like one of those frameworks we talked about was the resilience that like people really do work through grief and overcome it. And I think our in one of my classes, I remember specifically, they showed that like counseling, the benefit that it offers is people do work through their problems. People can move through it, move forward. Counseling just makes it faster. So you
mm,
can move through it and you can do it all on your own, but it may be 8 years versus 4 years, right? Or 8 months versus 4 months. Counseling just expedites the process of getting better and healing. It can. Let me
mm.
not say it does as a general
Yeah,
statement. It can. So I
yeah.
think that's keeping that in mind. Like counseling isn't going to do something for me I couldn't do on my own with the help of God, with support of family and friends. It may just help me do it on a faster timeline.
Yeah, like
Maybe
a teacher, right? Like, I go to
Mhm.
school, I could learn math, you know what I mean? But if I have a teacher who's been through, or, knows the steps, he can
Yeah.
say, "Yeah, you could figure that out eventually, or I could teach you how to do it. I could teach you a way, a
Mhm.
process that could get you there faster." I like that. That's really cool.
a
Yeah.
teacher, a coach, a doctor, all of these people who are meant to help. Your body might heal on
Mhm.
for some things. Your body might heal, but if we give it some medicine, it's going to heal faster.
Yeah.
Or yeah, I like that
Yeah.
idea. And maybe and tell me if we're going to talk about this
Yeah.
later. I'm happy to be patient, but
No.
um, your thought of like this will help it go faster also makes me think counseling probably naturally comes to an end at some point in time, where maybe one concern is you hear like some people just have a counselor, a therapist always, like for the
Yeah.
rest of their life. And some people may need that. But
Mhm.
I guess what's the thought behind counseling should have an end, or is that the way that it's looked at?
When I do an intake with people, I'll often say, "You didn't come here to die." Like, the goal is that you get better and learn strategies so that you can figure this out and move forward on your own. And I'm here to just help you get to that point. So, yes, the goal of counseling is to graduate it, right? Like that a goal of counseling is to be able to move through it. And you and therapist, a lot of our training is on termination, like knowing when, okay, I think we've done it, okay, I think you're ready to go on your own. And a lot of counseling, it's not, also know that it's not like a firm cutoff, like, well, it was nice to know you, see you. A lot of times, because I think my experience was like my counselor was really important to me, and then the thought of like, what, you're just like evaporate, so a lot of it, there's a tapered sequence, just like starting up and then you're doing the work. There's often a tapering off, like, let's meet monthly, let's check in every other month, let's keep my number if anything comes up, so there's kind of both there. Yes, the goal is to help you graduate, to learn the skills and abilities to have the change happen, in which the distress, because the goal of all of it is for the distress to come down, for
Mhm.
the functioning to go up, right? For you to just get back to living life how you want to live it. So yeah,
Yep.
yeah,
Love that.
not there forever. And I think especially for people who enter it with grief as your main thing, I think that's a uniquely situated aspect of counseling where it can be kind of short term or shorter term. You work through, get the help that you need, and then you continue living your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the next question is just, what does counseling do? Like why? And this attends more to Kori's, like, can I just talk to my friend? Right? And
Right.
and absolutely, friends and family members and people connected to us, like, I think that's our most natural way, and turning to those relationships to help us sort through is counseling. That is a help. But I think the difference between those kind of interactions and professional counseling is probably threefold. The first is that in counseling, you will be challenged. And often with friends or family members, they just placate or, oh, yes, yes, And the point of counseling is to produce change. And so when you're in counseling, and challenge, I need to say that really carefully, because you're like, but I'm sad and my person died and I just want someone to be nice to me. And like, absolutely, the counselor will be nice to you and support you and empathetic with you. But the challenge will be maybe to your thought patterns. That for me was it. I was thinking in these ways that were like completely black and white, absolute. And it was causing me to just feel like my life is over, even though I had 2 years where Jake was healthy. We did all this stuff. He was as available as he had ever been to me, but so the challenge comes in just kind of addressing the ways in which maybe you're distressing yourself, or the way you're thinking or feeling is making your burden heavier. And so that's a difference in counseling. I think counseling also provides space for catharsis, just kind of emotional release that is unique and different than you may have to friends or family members. Because when you say things to friends or family members, guess what? They love you and they hate to see you hurting. And so there will often be a reaction within them to kind of go where you go, which can be really comforting, but it can also be burdensome, right? There were times where it was like I was feeling things that were so heavy and dark. It just felt like putting that on my beloved family members who were also feeling their own things. Then we're all just like sucked into this vortex hole of despair. And at times that felt less helpful. So counseling gives you a place to talk to someone who is removed from the situation. They're not in it. They're not part of it. It doesn't affect them. They feel for you being wounded and in pain, but they don't feel it in a way maybe your friends or family are taking it up. And then I think that thing I shared at the beginning, counseling offers this really neutral space where there's no need for reciprocity. And in my research, we've studied, I was literally, before I talked to you, just coding another grandmother's interview. So what I studied is grandparents who are helping their grandchildren who've lost their parent or a sibling. And one of the grandmother's main feelings was like, gosh, I'm there for my family. I'm listening to them. I'm helping them. But then they're not doing that for me. And that's totally justified, right? Because in family relationships, it's give and take, And so I think that's in my research, that's really come up as one of the grandmothers, like they felt significant pain over not having their family members attend to their experience. And so I think in relationships with people we know and love, there is that reciprocity component that is a wonderful thing, and also maybe sometimes a burdensome thing in grief and pain that's just so visceral. So I think counseling really offers that. It offers you this place to give all this stuff to someone with whom you don't have to give anything in return. You give them money. I remember doing that with
Mhm.
my counselor. I was like, what? You'll just take money? I just dumped this load of emotional garbage on you, and like, you're good? Okay, see? It was like so relieving to just be like, well, goodbye. Anyway, questions.
Yeah, I'm thinking, where does, and maybe this is for both of you, um, where does ecclesiastical leadership fit within that realm as well, right? So we kind of talked about family, friends, and then like where does when do I go to the bishop first, or when do I go, talk to my stake president first? And so I'd love to hear maybe both your thoughts on that. I don't know.
David is
Yeah.
that. So I've
Yeah.
I did speak to my bishop and stake presidency members through my own experience, but you go ahead, David.
Yeah, and I don't really talk a lot about my ecclesiastical experience on here, but I did serve as a bishop and am currently serving as a stake president and have had meaningful opportunities to go try to minister to people or to have them come and set an appointment and come and talk about a variety of different things, of course. Um,
Mhm.
and it's very clear I'm not a trained counselor or therapist. I don't know how to help somebody. That none of my training it lends towards that. It lends towards listening, trying to feel spiritual feelings of the person in front of me. What does God want for them? Scriptural application or gospel behaviors that can provide strength in tough times, but it doesn't do most of what Jordan talked about. Now, is it helpful to come and talk to a bishop or a stake president and to get those feelings? Yes. And it's also different than doing it as a friend. So there is that
Mhm.
similarity there. But I think just the education, the training, um, that is all very different. And so both have their purpose, but it feels very clear. And often when more of what I work with, more as a bishop, but sometimes as a stake president, is couples having marriage challenges. And so we'll talk through it, but we'll say, look, this is a marriage problem that should go to a marriage counselor. And we'll talk about staying close to Jesus while you guys figure out those other things. So Jordan, what thoughts do you have?
Yeah, I agree. I think the best thing is if it can be kind of everyone, consulting for the well-being of the person. I think for sure we have classes with chaplains and I love that so much, but I think their attention is focused on the spiritual dimension of the person's well-being, which is what the ecclesiastical leader is called to do. They're called to help you stay and feel and see yourself connected to God and to work through when that's not happening. And so that's one aspect of grief. And grief is particularly unique for ecclesiastical because we believe in afterlife, in these connections, in sealing, so that all plays to spiritual dimension. But then I think the component of, and for me particularly, the component that was different in counseling that I received from my therapist versus with talking to my bishop or stake president was like, she would attend to the aspects of my thinking and feeling that were skewed and that were disjointed. And I didn't have ecclesiastical leaders who even were aware of that, much less like able to attend to that. And that allowed for a lot of relief of distress so that then the spiritual nourishment and everything could keep coming through.
Yeah, and maybe one other thing that would be that might be helpful is your ecclesiastical leader has quite a few resources available to them that they can leverage on behalf of you. And we'll talk about some of that, Jordan, in a bit. But I think they can activate the Relief Society. They can activate the Elders Quorum, your ministering brothers and sisters. They can talk about employment. Now you lose your husband or your wife and a source of income, and now you need to look at financial considerations, and they can help, whether that's fast offering help or that's let's go find pathways, or there's just a variety of other needs that a person will have in their life that the church is so good at trying to help with, and your ecclesiastical leader is the one who unlocks those opportunities for you.
Yeah. And it's just like a beautiful thing that our church cares about the holistic well-being of its members. Yeah.
Yep.
Love
Amen.
that. Thank you
Other
guys.
questions? Kori, yeah.
So no, that's so helpful. Yeah, I'm grateful for that and just feeling a lot of uh and I know there are some people who aren't members of our church who may listen to this as well, and that there are religious leaders out there that care and that will sit down and talk to you and share Jesus, and we hope that this is kind of a resource in that realm. Not we're obviously very different, but in that realm of building belief, through this grief process, that there can be such a help in turning to Him as well. And then it feels like we have this team, you know what I mean? Like someone's gonna help, physically, someone can help spiritually, someone can help mentally, right? And you have this team of really real life angels
Yeah.
that are ready to go to bat and help you learn, grow, feel, progress. And I think that's exciting. So
And I think for me, that as a griever, that's how it kind of ended. My like my backstop was like, anything that's going to help me, that has the potential to alleviate some of this pain and this burden, I'm going to say yes to it. Right. And so it was every road of help that came. Counseling was one, but it wasn't the one or the only one. So it's like there are just many aspects and available resources to help you on this journey. Okay, limitations of counseling, right? Counseling cannot bring back your person who died. It cannot fix your life if you are unwilling to make changes. And counseling isn't a magic tool for your kids. It's not a thing you can just say, oh, I'll just send them to counseling and then it will be better. So I'd say there are absolutely limitations. It will require adjustment on your part. It will require you looking at things in a different way. It will require you maintaining relationships, helping your children, answering their questions, attending to them. But I think it's just like it's another support in the scaffolding of helping you through bereavement. Any other limitations that you want
well, I
to?
want to talk. Can we talk about kids for a second? I love that you brought that up, and maybe that's a concern that some people have had. Like, uh, again, I'm revealing a weakness here. I think there have been moments in my life where I've been like, I don't want my kids to talk to them. I want them to talk to me. I want to be, and I think there's again some humility there that can be required for a parent to say, you know what, I don't know all the tools. Yeah, I don't have all the right, like a parent sending their kid to school, right? I don't know math, and I really don't.
Yeah.
And so I gotta send them there if they're gonna learn it. And anyways, I'm just wondering if we could talk about that, and maybe is there any encouragement or help for parents who are like, I don't know, like, do I send my kids? What, is it worth it? Or any parents that are nervous out there, what would you say?
Yeah. So I think, again, you're watching for those same signals in your child. Are they distressed to a level that I've never recognized this in them before? Is it bleeding over into their other areas of life? And is it inhibiting their ability to function? Right. And if
Mhm.
that's yes, 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 then yeah, maybe it's like, this child may need help. So there are kind of different parameters with younger children. There's play therapy because especially children, elementary aged under 8, there's just not the vocabulary to say, let's talk about your problems for an hour and have so play therapy is kind of the technique. It involves a lot of different toys and different activities through which the child can express maybe things that are going on, and then through which the counselor, after having that expression, can then talk to the parent. It's important to know that any child under age 18, the client is the parent, meaning that the parent is the legal representative. So counselors, they have kind of a double duty. They do need to keep the confidentiality of the client who is their child, but they're also responsible to the parent. So I think most counselors who work with children really try and tend to both. They just try and give the child a space where maybe they can talk about things and release things because children feel similarly. Maybe they are aching, but they don't want to tell you because they know then you'll be aching and they already see it and they already know that you're suffering and they don't want to add on, right? Or maybe they don't understand what they're feeling, and processing with you makes them feel like, oh no, now that will make my mom go back into her deep hole and she just came out of it and I want her to be okay. So it's that, again, that relational aspect is at play even with children. But know that most therapists will speak to your child independently, but then I always, near the end of my sessions, invite the parent back in. I say to the child, we've talked about this, this, and this. Would it be okay if we shared this with your parents so that we can all kind of figure out how to help you, and in the main, the children are like, yeah, that would be great. And so the counselor in some ways just becomes a voice of clarification for the child, and a place where the child can be free to have that cathartic experience without worrying about what it will do to their parent.
Yeah. That's so helpful and good. I like that too. The idea that I could still be a part of it. I'm not like drop my kid off, don't know what happened, take him home and hope that it worked, but that
Yeah,
I
right.
can
Because
I
there's
can be
that.
a part of
That's
it.
like the other side is like, well, just go to counseling. Are you better now?
Yeah, right. But yeah, that it would be a process that I'd be involved in. And I'm wondering
You would
for
need to make that explicit, I
yeah.
think you need to make that explicit with whoever you're working with. You would need to talk to the counselor of the child and
Mhm.
say, how do you work? How do you usually go about this? What is this process like? I think asking those questions, really getting clarification for wherever your child will be seen.
And then could I get some tools too, that would can support them in their process of growth? That's exciting. That's cool.
Sometimes, so my teenage girls, it was kind of when, so I was dating and then got remarried about 6 years after my husband died, and my oldest daughter, it timed out that she was also kind of turning 15, 16, and that's an age where when children have experienced a loss really young, they don't have, like, the vocabulary or even the awareness to know all the feelings they had. So sometimes children will grieve later because finally they reach these ages that where they can start processing all of it. So my daughter, so here we are in this complicated situation. Like I have met someone, I'm, thinking about getting remarried. I'm feeling happy. It's like her dad has died afresh. Like she's
Mm,
devastated, and there was this period of time where I'm holding it and listening and trying, but I felt myself tap out. Like, this is beyond where I can go with you right now because it's, we're in such different places. So at that point, we were able to find someone who's wonderful, works with a lot of teenage girls. And she's told me she's now, 20, it's years later, but she's like, Mom, that was one of the best things that I ever had. I just needed a place to go where I could talk about all the things that were real and heavy for me. And that counselor, I really gave a wide berth, because I wanted her to have space. But at one point they brought me in, the my daughter said, oh, Mom, she wants you to come to this next session. And it was really beautiful. Like, my daughter had some specific concerns, things that she was really worried about. She had clarified those with the counselor, and I came in and she was able to say those to me. And it
mm,
was so great to be able to be like, I'm so glad to know this. And I could attend to each one and say, yes, this is something we can do something about. This is something I want you to know. She had an idea of how I felt, and I was like, that's not at all how I felt. So
mm.
I think it's, even for me as a mom, to have that third party person there to kind of help us, who again wasn't emotionally invested or over involved. It was a really good experience. So
But but was on your team. That's awesome.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Anything else there? Next question is, how do I find a therapist? So number one for me is like word of mouth recommendation. That's big. So you have friends, you have family members, they've probably had counselors or know someone who has. So I think that's a really nice way to get an idea of like, who's out there, who have you seen, how has it been helpful, or not. And then you can go different directions. So that's one thing. I think, like David mentioned, your bishop and ecclesiastical leaders, all of them have a short list of counselors or counseling offices or places where they refer people because they're making referrals frequently. So that's a place to ask if you're LDS specifically. And then I think generally, if you're like, I just want to search broadly, there's a website. It's called psychologytoday.com. So Psychology Today. And you go in, you type in your city, your state, and then you can click a million boxes to filter out. So I went in today and I typed in Provo, Utah, and I clicked on the box for grief and I clicked on the box for adult, and it brought up 408 people. You can also click on boxes for your insurance specifically. So if you're like, look, I have DMBA, I want to be seen by someone, then you can click on that. If you're like, I have no insurance, I'm going to be cash pay. So you can really specify and kind of develop a short list that way. Also, it's important to know you can have, I just lost the term. You can basically have interviews with people you're interested in seeing for counseling without being committed to being their client. So a lot of people will offer on their website, what's called just initial consultation. And they're 15-minute appointments usually, where you can just get online or go into the office and have a little, hi, nice to meet you. Tell me about you. Here's about me. Any questions? Before you're even committed to like, let's pursue therapy together. So that's a nice option to know about. That's something I've done, and it's a normal part of the practice. You don't need to feel like I went in and talked to them and I'm not going to go with it. Like, again, this is a business. This is a professional relationship. It's like finding a dentist or a doctor. You go in, you talk to people, this is the same thing.
Yeah, you're not breaking up with them.
Those are the words I was searching for.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any questions on finding someone? Anything you'd add?
You mentioned that you specifically wanted someone with a similar faith belief.
Mhm.
And I'm wondering,
That's a box too.
is that a box? Okay, that's what I was curious.
It's a box. Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Click.
Yeah, okay.
Mhm.
That's helpful. Because I could definitely see that, and not that it would be a requirement for everyone maybe, but that it could be helpful to be like, okay, I know they're gonna understand when I talk about my belief, they're gonna have a certain understanding of that. So that's cool.
Yeah.
This has been great, Jordan. You're doing awesome.
Yeah.
This has
Yes.
been so helpful. Yeah.
Okay, 2 more questions and then we'll close it up. I see the time.
Okay.
We're getting close. So, how do I pay for therapy? So, like I kind of talked about at the beginning, a lot of insurance now covers therapy just like any medical expense. So, a lot of insurances see therapy as part of your overall health. Mental health is part of your health and well-being. And so, a lot of insurances will cover sessions. That means they pay for them completely. They kind of, have their set allowed amount. Some insurances have session limits on that. So they may say within a calendar year, you can go 16 times, but some don't. And you really don't know until you get in and look at kind of what your insurance has and covers. And the majority of therapists take a lot of insurance, but that's a good thing, to look for. And as you're talking to people to kind of see, okay, is this something that my insurance can help with and would pay for? A lot of places also do cash pay. So there are some therapists who only do cash. And if you're in a position where that's something you can take on, that's a way they go about it. There are community health centers. So I currently work at one. It's called Mountainlands Community Health, and it's for people who are underinsured or uninsured. And they, based on kind of your income, just charge you on a sliding fee scale. So for most people who come to see me, I think they pay $25 for a session because their income is low. So there are options, even if you're like, I don't have insurance and I don't have any income. There are options for you to be seen in therapy. There's also assistance through your ecclesiastical leaders. So David can speak more to that. And then if you have anyone who's a college student, almost every university, and for sure the ones in Utah Valley, offer counseling that's free for their student body. So if you have children who are kind of college age, or you, like I went back to school, are in school, consider kind of your university counseling center as an option too.
Maybe on the ecclesiastical side, we know we have LDS family services, probably just called family services at this point, and they do see people, that needs to be set up through a bishop, generally. They will often ask if you have insurance and if you're able to pay for it because it's a finite resource. They want to be able to help people who perhaps only they could help. But there's a way to go through that, and they've been really awesome to work with in a lot of ways. I even sometimes call them as an ecclesiastical leader to do a consultation to say, help me know how to help someone else, from an ecclesiastical standpoint. So that's something to talk to the bishop about, and that's probably one of the more frequent things that fast offering money is used for, just because of the value it can provide to somebody going through a stressful situation.
Yeah. Okay. Any other questions on pay?
I don't know that this necessarily has to do with pay, and it kind of goes back to a question I asked towards the beginning, but um, how do I know if I go to a counselor, and can any counselor prescribe medication?
Mm,
And could that, or could I be worried about, I don't know, could that be a concern of mine, that if I show up to a counselor that they're going to say, here's some pills, or is it, how do I know that
good.
what I'm
Great
what I'm
question.
getting into as
Great
far as
question.
medications?
So mental health and medical health are kind of two different umbrellas. And at this point, currently, only medical health providers can write scripts for medication.
Yeah.
So I have a PhD. I will have a PhD, right? In a
Mhm.
year. I cannot
Mhm.
give anyone drugs because I will be a psychologist, right? Psychiatrist is a medical doctor trained in mental health to write prescriptions for people. So I don't think you can get a prescription. And again, this is my opinion because I am, but I don't think you can get a prescription from any therapist. And if therapists are giving you some, I feel that that's somewhat questionable.
Yeah.
But yeah, therapist training is not in prescription. So that would be from your general practitioner, a nurse practitioner, a psychiatrist. Those
Mhm.
will be the medical people will be ones if it feels like, an antidepressant or an anti-anxiety is warranted, you would pursue it from the medical health side rather
So
than
if
the
I'm feeling,
side.
oh, sorry. Yeah, thank
Oh,
you. So if I'm feeling like, or wondering if I have depression, or wondering if I'm experiencing anxiety, a counselor isn't necessarily right, like the direction I'd rather go to, it would be more appropriate to find a psychiatrist
yeah.
that could prescribe some of those things. Any help with someone who's like, well, I don't know, like, what is
Yeah,
it? Like, I'm feeling overwhelmed.
start with
Is
your
that is
general practice doctor. That's where
okay?
it's Mhm.
Awesome.
Especially if it's grief only, right? Like if there
Mhm.
are other things at play, but if this is just like, I've lost someone, I feel really sad and hopeless, just start with your general practice doctor or kind of your children's pediatrician. Mhm.
What on the pay side of things, what's if you're a cash pay,
Yeah,
what's a range that
great
somebody
question.
could expect that's reasonable?
Great question. So that depends kind of on the level of clinician that you're seeing, and we'll move into that next. So when you go to see people and when you look people up online, you will see so many letters
Mhm.
because depending on people's training, they have letters. But generally, you can expect to pay for kind of a master's level trainee anywhere from $100 up to someone who has a PhD, $200 for a visit. And again, individuals in private practice will sometimes have sliding scales. And so, depending on where you are, what's going on, they may be able to adjust those rates. But a typical rate is going to be about $150 for an hour long session.
And would that depend to most of our listeners are probably here in Utah, but we
Mhm.
have listeners outside. Would that be different if they're in New York City or prob I'm
Probably,
guessing, feels like it.
probably. But I think
W
it's also somewhat standard, but I'm sure if
Yeah.
you're, you know, in a huge metropolis, you may pay 300,
Mhm.
200 to 300, just like an attorney's billable hour is gonna be more in a big city, yeah. But yeah,
And
I
we
think
we
I think I think 100 to 200 as a range is probably pretty safe
Yeah.
estimate. And then if you have insurance, say they bill it at 100, but the insurance says we pay 85, then that's what the clinic will take. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and then we do, of course, have the small contingent of faithful listeners in Denmark, and who
Oh,
knows what it's like over there. So
oh,
maybe they can comment and educate us.
that would be so
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah,
That would. We'll learn about, I imagine through, socialized medicine. I don't know how it works. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Or
Would be
mental health fit.
interesting.
But yeah, mental health really is part of the medical, health umbrella. So there is a lot of support for it in the United States. So yeah, basically when you're looking someone up, there's kind of two routes you can go. So most people will either have master's level training or have a PhD. And that the difference is number one in the time. So master's level training will be 2 years. So they spent 2 years in coursework, learning different things. And then a PhD will have spent 5 years in their training, in their coursework, and in their practice work. All clinicians have to have between 2,000 to 4,000 direct hours of experience. So anyone who is licensed will have worked with, and that doesn't, not all of that is like they're seeing clients for 2,000 hours, but they're probably seeing clients for 1,000 of the hours. So anyone who's licensed will have had kind of a background wealth of training, as in classroom training, but then also experience by seeing a wide range of people. There's a lot of letters you'll come up against. Again, you can use chat, but the main ones will be you're looking at a social worker. So that's an MSW or LCSW. And the overview is the social worker is looking at resources within your community to help you. That's kind of their lens. What are the resources that are available to help you? The next master's is an MFT, marriage family therapist. Their training is in systems. So they're looking at you are not just you. You're part of a system, whether that be a nuclear family, an extended family, a community. There's there's clinical mental health counselors. And that's an area of training that I don't have as much familiarity with, but I think their training is really on the counseling experience. And then you have PhDs, and there's kind of two branches of PhD. PhD means you're a psychologist, and you either got your training as a clinical psychologist or a counseling psychologist. A PhD's training also included a lot of academic experience. So looking at studies and research and what do we know about mental health and human functioning. There's also what's called a PsyD. That person, that's a doctoral level of training, also 5 years. But the difference is their focus is on clinical practice. So instead of the academic research side being part of their training, that's less, and their training is more on the clinical. How do you work with people? What are you doing with clients? How do you see this through? So there's different kinds of training that people will have had. And that training kind of is the lens through which your therapist will think about your problems. I wanted to give a caveat about, well, I want to see a grief therapist. And I want to say that in the realm of clinically trained and licensed people, that really doesn't exist. So grief therapy isn't a thing you can go to school and say, I'm going to get specific training and a license in grief therapy. Most people who practice grief therapy have a license in something else. They either got a license as a social worker, a marriage family therapist, or a psychologist. But then what a lot of them have done is they've pursued some kind of certification training after their academic experience, and licensure. And there's some specific ones. There's one called the Association for Death Education and Counseling. They offer a certification. Behind the person's name would be the letters CT. That means Certified in Thanatology. There's the American Academy of Grief Counseling. They offer a GC-C certification, and that means you're a certified grief counselor. Or there's something called Evergreen certifications that offer a CGP, Certified Grief Informed Professional. So there may be some training that your counselor got after they pursued just their normal academic training that makes them certified to work with individuals in grief. But I'd say just be a little wary if someone's like, I'm a grief counselor. I really want to look into and ask questions about, well, what does that mean? And how did you get your training? And what was your training specific to grief? Because I think this is a vulnerable population and one that people know is under-resourced. And so I just say, be wary on that when you're pursuing counseling and someone's really saying, well, I'm a grief counselor. Like that doesn't, in what I could look up today, and again, not a professional opinion, this is my opinion, but I don't think saying I'm a grief counselor really exists. You're a counselor in some mode of academic training. And then I also want to put out grief coaching. So grief coaching is different in that a grief coach does not have an academic degree and they are not licensed by a state. And what they do is they just pursue certification through some independent program. They do get training, some experience. Often grief coaches work in hospice or in grief support groups, but their treatment is really forward looking. It's on what can we do to provide support now that this person has died, and they are not certified to diagnose or help with mental health conditions. So that's kind of a thing to keep in mind. A lot of people go into grief coaching because of their own loss, which is a wonderful thing, but it doesn't substitute kind of evidence-based training. Questions there?
So good. So helpful. I've learned some things that I needed to learn about this today, and some specific things that I want to take some action on. And so thank you. Thank you, Jordan.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time and for going through all those questions and answering all of our crazy questions. We just really appreciate you, and we hope that this will be helpful to somebody out there.
Thank
Perfect.
you.
Okay. Thank you so much, Jordan.
Yeah. We'll talk again.
Okay, we'll see you next time. Thank you to our incredible guests for sharing their story of hope. If you know someone who might be blessed by hearing this message, please share it with them. We would love it if you would subscribe, rate, and review, and comment on our podcast so others can find it. Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Facebook, as well as join our Grief and Beliefs Facebook group. Thank you to our sponsor, High Five Live Tours, where fun and joy meet on inspiring travel experiences. Special thanks to our producer, Misty Lynn Howard. Check out her history podcast called Faith Ignited. Thank you again for listening, and we'll see you next time.